Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Views and News and I'm Faisal Rehman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about this very historic visit of the Prime Minister Imran Khan to United States of America, where he'll be meeting the President of USA, Mr. Donald Trump, in a little while. Because there is a 9-hour difference, so it is going to be around a little over 9 p.m. Pakistani time. But having said that, since we have already talked about his commitments in our previous program, that he is going to make sure that the ties between the two countries should improve, and there should be a significant improvement which should be visible also. He's also going to talk about the Afghan peace process, the Afghan issue. Another important agenda definitely is going to be about Pakistan and India being two nuclear neighbors and the current hostile and aggression adopted by the Indians. When you look at a couple of the features of the Prime Minister's visit, obviously one very important meeting is going to be between the two leaders, the President and the Prime Minister of Pakistan. And later on, the Prime Minister is also going to meet their cabinet members, and there's going to be a very important meeting among those as well. Since the DG ISI as well as the Chief of Army Staff, they're also accompanying the Prime Minister. So, very important meeting between the Chief as well as the Defense Secretary of USA and other major important officers regarding the Pentagon. So, those officers will also meet the Chief. Now, having said that, since a lot of issues are on the plate, are very much under discussion at the moment and will also be presented before the American President. But now, having said that, just one example of the kind of popularity or the love for the charisma of the Prime Minister, which was witnessed yesterday when in Washington, in the Arena Park, there were more than 30,000 people gathered. As you can see in the visuals, these are all Pakistanis. They have come from almost all these states. They gathered there and eventually praised their Prime Minister for the current stance he's taken and also for the improvement in the overall system regarding the governance or otherwise. Since we always talk about bringing in change, and the motto of this particular government is Naya Pakistan, New Pakistan, change, and change for good. This is exactly what he tried to explain there as well. So everybody appreciated him, everybody loved their Prime Minister, and everybody hailed. And they all want that the ties between Pakistan and USA should improve. Now, to talk about this, let me introduce you to our panelists we have with us in our studio. On my right is the Dr. Nazir Mahmood Saab. He's senior columnist, senior journalist. Thank you very much, sir. We also have the Brigadier retired Salim Kamar Bhatt Saab, senior analyst. Thank you very much. And we'll also be talking to Saeed Muhammad Ali Saab. He is with us on Skype. Saeed Muhammad Ali Saab, thank you very much, sir, for taking out your time and talking to us. Now, thank you. Sir, thank you very much, sir. Now, talking to you, Dr. Saab, let's start off from this gathering, sir. Wasn't in a hotel or otherwise, sir. Normally, I've been traveling with the Prime Ministers and with the Presidents earlier as well. Honestly speaking, sir, this kind of gathering we have never witnessed before, to be very honest. Wherever you talk about Norway, where the second largest communities of Pakistanis, or otherwise for that matter, in Switzerland or in UK even. But this was something unbelievable, sir. Look at the crowd as if they were present to watch a baseball match or something of that sort. The whole crowd was there, charged, and they all came here just for one person, and that person is your and our Prime Minister, Imran Khan. Your take, sir, let's start off from there.
Yes, there is no doubt that it was a big, huge gathering, and estimates vary, some say 20,000, 25, 30,000. So even if the crowd was between 20 to 30,000, it's a big crowd, huge crowd. And all this diaspora coming to greet the Prime Minister, I think it was a big achievement. And no doubt for Prime Minister himself and all the PTI supporters, it was definitely a big success. Well, we can discuss what he spoke about. That is that you may agree or disagree with the content of his speech, but there is no doubt that it was a huge success. If you measure the success in terms of number of people who attended that, it was a huge success.
I still remember, sir, when Modi Saab took charge during his first government and he visited United States of America. Somebody told me that the front row per seat was sold around $50,000. $50,000 then. Yeah. Just imagine, this was the kind of love and appreciation the Indian had for their Prime Minister. Over here, so people have spent their own money And look at the gathering. I mean, that was humongous, and I think one should appreciate the spirit of the Pakistanis or the non-resident Pakistanis living abroad. Your take on the same point, Brigadier Saab?
I think it was a great display of nationalism by the Pakistani diaspora, not only in the United States, but I heard some of my friends, they called me from DC today, that the people traveled from Canada also to join this gathering, and there were over 30,000 crowd inside the Arena 1, and there were a large crowd outside the arena also. So it has sent a very good signal back home that diaspora, they are away from the country, but they are very precious people. And I hope that their love for the Prime Minister and for the country translates into investments in Pakistan, because the Prime Minister must have given them the hope that Pakistan is a much safer and stable country now for the investment.
That's correct.
So the diaspora have to translate their loyalty with the country through their investment in the private sector. Because if they make the private sector an investment, that is what Pakistan badly needs, because our economy, you know, is in shambles, and one of the major determinant of the macro economy is the investment, whether it's public or private. So in both counts, Pakistan needs a lot of foreign investment, and that is where Pakistani diaspora.
One quick comment. So that, do you think this particular gathering or this presence of the people, the number and the kind of energy and the enthusiasm they had, sir, that clearly reflects the kind of trust the overseas Pakistanis have on their Prime Minister?
That's right. That's right. I think that was thoroughly proved. Though the skeptics, the critics would say that Prime Minister the talk to the crowd could have been different, as Doctor was trying to say. Partially agree with him. But when you are confronted with the crowd who are expecting to hear something, so that political rhetoric sometimes, you know, overtakes your actual agenda point that you actually had to deliver. But nevertheless, I'm sure the Prime Minister has sent very positive vibes, not only in the United States, it's diaspora all over the world that Pakistanis are there. So I think they will feel much more respected, reassured about their country.
I think the Prime Minister should have another stop in Wembley Stadium.
Yeah.
And maybe he can gather more people there as well, sir.
You see, if he's
because this is what...
you mentioned Modi. When he was there, the Madison Square saw only about 18,000 people, with a lot of Indian community spending millions and millions of dollars to gather people. So just 18,000 people in Madison Square. But here, not a penny has been spent, and we have seen a crowd around 40,000 people.
There's a difference, sir. I think he is one of the most popular leaders at the moment,
Yeah,
sir. Even if you look at him from the global perspective. But sir, if you
I
allow me,
think
quick
I just would like to add, but
sir.
he raised a very important point that, you know, all these people who have attended this is very good. It looks very good. But they need to, you know, this love for the country should also materialize in concrete terms, because there has been a lot of talk about expatriate Pakistanis diaspora sending money to Pakistan. But as you know, this in the past 1 year, there has not been any concrete major investment or, you know, remittances, increase in remittances. So that we have not seen.
Trust deficit.
So yes, trust deficit is definitely there. So, you know, the final, as I said,
And other than the remittances,
good,
as earlier mentioned, Brigadier Saab, the investments, Pakistanis have got a lot of money.
so they should be sending it, you know.
I can tell you about a few projects which the doctors of the American community, I mean, they've
Very
gathered,
rich community.
and they have made huge hospitals. I think state-of-the-art machineries they have installed there, and it's amazing.
You know, individual projects are there. For example, in Karachi, this Indus Hospital project, you know, there were doctors, there's a doctor organization, they send a lot of money. So individually, they have built good projects, and those projects are functioning very well also, which is very good and should be appreciated. But now there is a time that, you know, they should go beyond that and at the governmental level, you know, so that it can help
So
the
there's
government.
another very interesting aspect also, we'll definitely talk about that. The bonds Pakistan wants to float in the market, and the markup is pretty decent, and I'm sure a lot of Pakistanis, instead of keeping their money in their lockers and elsewhere, can buy those bonds, and they can actually make good money, because the interest rate is going to be really good. They'll be paid in dollars and on quarterly, biannually and annually basis, and you can keep them for 5 years and all. You know.
So time will show how it comes.
Yes, sir, indeed.
Time will show.
Mohammed Ali Saab, sir, thank you very much once again, sir, for taking out your time. We have heard that you're visiting Pakistan, but though you spend most of your time in USA, you're a working journalist there as well, sir. Now, my point, Mohammed Ali Saab, is that first of all, sir, in the recorded history of United States of America, sir, has any politician, a non-American politician, has been able to gather these many people, sir, with such enthusiasm?
Look, I don't have the figures, in front of me, but I can't directly answer that question. With the Madison Square Garden, gathering of Modi, a lot of the Indian diasporic community was there. I mean, it's impressive that there was a chain of cars following the Prime Minister, out of the airport after he, disembarked. One shouldn't say unceremoniously, because this was an official visit, but it wasn't a state visit where where the U.S. administration was rolling out the red carpet for him. However, the diasporic community has been activated. I mean, it has, and there is, as the earlier discussants are saying, that there is, there's value if we're thinking of harnessing foreign remittances. And of course, our economy is very dependent on foreign remittances. And if there are possibilities of further harnessing those, I mean, those are certainly, and I don't want to be dismissive, those are all important aspects. But I mean, we also don't want to get carried away, with this one-off sort of, showing of, let's say, 30, 40,000 people, Pakistani diasporic people. Because even if we're thinking optics, or if we're thinking perceptions, or if we're thinking of, support for Pakistan, and I'm not going towards sort of, official bilateral relations between the two countries, because I'm sure, the discussion's going to go that way. But even there, Pakistan has a serious image problem, not only, amongst other South Asians who reside in the U.S. and amongst Americans. And I mean, I say this because I teach in 2 or 3 universities. I teach undergraduate and graduate level courses, and I interact with think tanks and students, and lots of them. There needs to be, even within the Pakistani diasporic community, the narratives that we have tend to be rather simplistic. And, we don't be over-enthusiased, about this kind of revolutionary systemic change that, hasn't occurred in the past 70 years. And now all of a sudden, we have a new government and a charismatic prime minister, and now we're going to see the tables turn, and Pakistan is going to go from strength to strength. Because the challenge is we also have to be realistic, and at the structural level, at the geostrategic level, there are numerous challenges as well.
Definitely, we'll talk about that, Muhammad Ali. We'll definitely talk about that, because now the second round, which we're going to have with our guest, we will definitely be talking about the major areas which will be under focus. For example, Afghanistan. Now, talking about Afghanistan, peace in Afghanistan. Now, a lot of people do believe that the major focus is going to be about the Pak-Afghan issues, for that matter. A lot of issues which Pakistan has regarding the use of Afghan soil, for that matter, so by the Indians, and then attacking Pakistan and killing innocent civilians. And then, for that matter, sir, the plan of action of the Americans and the future role of Pakistan, along with other regional countries. Now, this is going to be the major area of discussion, sir. Let's start from there, sir. Afghanistan, peace process, Pakistan and USA. Now, what do you think, sir, where this is going to lead? Your take.
Well, Afghanistan will definitely be one of the major topics of discussion. I won't say that the only major or the major,
not the only,
one of the
major,
because
yeah.
there is CPAC, there is Iran, there is
There's
India.
a lot attached to
so,
it, yes.
Afghanistan is a major issue, and since this has been one of the longest interventions in any other country by America, even more than Vietnam. In Vietnam, active involvement was around 15 15 years or so. And here they have been for more than 18 years now. So this is a long, and they definitely want to get out. When Trump came to power, he said, I want to get out. And they have been progressing. They have started negotiating with the Taliban in Qatar, Doha. They have held multiple meetings, and Zalmay Khalilzad, he was very optimistic. And the last statement that I read from him, he said that we are positive and we are moving in the right direction. Now, what is that right direction? What do they mean by right direction? Actually, USA wants a safe exit, number one. And number two, after their exit, what will be the new dispensation like? Who will be involved there? So, of course, initially they did not want to involve Taliban, but then now they have started negotiating with the Taliban. So, with Pakistan, I think America, there will be expectation from both sides. So, it is wrong to assume that only America should be expecting something from Pakistan. Pakistan should also be expecting something, and I'm sure they are expecting.
And that something should be or would be what?
Well, I mean, the details will be clear by tomorrow what they discuss. But I think that Pakistan's major concern will be that Indian involvement should be reduced there. And as you just mentioned that, there have been examples in which Indian infiltration into Balochistan, like just Kulbhushan was also arrested, Kulbhushan Yadav. So these are the things that Pakistan will be negotiating with them, number one. And from their side, I think they will need an assurance that the new dispensation, when it comes, maybe it is a joint coalition government with the current setup and Taliban. So whatever new setup comes in, USA, I think, would be expecting Pakistan to assure that both India and Pakistan, because peace in Afghanistan is not possible without not only Pakistan, but also negotiating with India. Why? Because Indian presence is there. So up till now, Pakistan and India have been they have followed exclusive approach. They want to exclude each other. Pakistan wants no India, India wants no Pakistan. I think this approach is not right. So ideally, there should be negotiations, and after that negotiation, there should be a peaceful
These two
moving
countries
forward.
basically are adversaries, sir. And the point is, then once you're living there, I mean, in a place, and finally the Americans, they were there for almost 18 years, now they want to exit. Obviously, the role of India in terms of improving the infrastructure of Afghanistan or building up a few libraries or universities or a few roads for that matter, yes, that is something very visible. But other than that, I think, sir, if Chinese want to invest, I think they have invested more than the Indians so far. So, but nobody talks about that, not even the Americans. Now, brings up another important point, and that is obviously about Pakistan, India, and their role in Afghanistan. But sir, one very unfortunate part is that Pakistan is always looked upon from the prism of Afghanistan, especially by the Americans. Right. And also in this case, so obviously, before we move on and talk about the actual real issues or the internal issues of Pakistan, or sort of, moving forward with the positive mindset, that seems to be an impossible scenario because of this Afghanistan issue. Sir?
I think the current visit is a testimony to the victory of Pakistani stance on Afghanistan and imbroglio. Let me underscore right there. When I say it's a victory of Pakistani stance that we have held despite a lot of pressure and criticism from the West of siding with the Taliban. You remember right from 2002-03, we had been saying that Afghanistan war will not end with war, it will end with a regional political solution which has to be Afghan-owned, Afghan-led. And that has finally been accepted in the form of 4 countries' declaration, US, China, Russia and Pakistan.
Correct, sir.
Saying what? Peace and stability in Afghanistan through inter-Afghan dialogue. And I heard Stanekzai, the Afghan Taliban spokesperson, and White House both saying the same thing, that the draft agreement on the 4-point that Khalilzad had been discussing for the last 7-8 rounds that he has had since.
They have actually reached some sort of an agreement.
Right. So they have the draft agreement ready, about to be signed. So what are those 4 points? First of all, let me recap that. One was the assurance given by Taliban that there won't be terrorism emanating from the soil of Afghanistan. and America would give him a timeline for total withdrawal. Third, Taliban would observe ceasefire, and the Afghan government and the American would also follow suit. And finally, inter-Afghan dialogue had to take place in order to bring around the political dispensation. Obviously, as the things have happened now, it is pretty obvious that whenever there is a political dispensation, Taliban may have to be in the lead. Now, what is Pakistan's role? Since December 2018 till today, Pakistan had done tremendous job in making this happen. Now, this facilitation role that Pakistan has played in the lingo of an authority, that is the former ambassador, Indian ambassador M.K. Badra Kumar. I read his article that he had written 3-4 days back, in which he said that the visit of Prime Minister Imran Khan to America is a watershed moment in the regional politics, and it is a moment of truth for India. So it has a wide meaning for it. As per Badra Kumar, India has lost in Afghanistan. They had tried to find, while they were accusing Pakistan of finding strategic depth in Afghanistan, actually it was India who was trying to find the strategic depth in Afghanistan. And they had not been able to do that despite waging a covert war for the last 18 years using both South and West. Now, coming to Afghanistan peace process, as we say, it's a process. It is not a sudden end game. Now, the process
But my question is, do you think Pakistan is going to get a larger role, a greater role in this process?
Absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm not saying that the word do more would be used, but indirectly they will ask Pakistan to sort of give more support.
Right. So how would Pakistan do that? It's a heavy lift given to Pakistan that Pakistan has to do. So Pakistan has to be given that capacity to do that heavy lift. So that capacity building, of course, when as a composite delegations have gone with Prime Minister Imran Khan, is a military head, is an intelligence chief there, all ministries are there. So it's going to be a full spectrum dialogue through specialist delegation out there. So it's a restoration, putting the Pak-US relation back on the rail, and it's a full spectrum bilat of Pak-US again that we are seeing maybe at par with India. So the role that India had been given in Asia-Pacific, that they called Indo-Pacific policy.
No, it's Indo-Pacific.
Now the Pakistan is once again in the lead role as far as Afghanistan is concerned, the peace and stability in the region is concerned. Now, what is the ask from Pakistan? That is your question. The ask would be actually using maximum leverages to make sure that Taliban ultimately, after fighting for 18 years, when they are invited to be part of the mainstay political stream, so they have to reconcile. They have to reconcile that they have to leave the fighting, they have to leave the terrorism, they have to follow the political path, and they have to work for the economic stability of the country. So it's a long process for which Pakistan will have to cover a lot of distances.
Now, so let's go to Sayyid Muhammad Ali Sahab. Muhammad Ali Sahab, now there are a couple of very interesting observations, I would say. One is that there seems to be a disconnect between the White House and the Pentagon regarding this, which there was. That's what I'm saying. Now, sir, in order to have proper, fruitful result of any sort of a visit, sir, what do you think? How important is that the White House and the Pentagon should be on the same page, and at least, whatever comes out after the talks and all, at least they should have a similar point of view, sir, because if one department is thinking on some other angles and the White House has some different point of view, then there is going to be a problem at some stage. Sir, your take.
I think that's a very interesting point, and to a large extent, it's true. And we have to contextualize this visit now, also, from the U.S. perspective, and remember, this is President Trump. Thinks that he's a very hard bargainer, a great deal maker, and who has sort of been trying to create his name in history, if you will, by trying to have hard bargains with very tough states, including North Korea and Kim Jong-il. and also, which was again a very White House-led initiative. So, and other analysts have been, Pakistan Watchers, etc., have been talking about this, how this was not a conventional visit where a lot of the groundwork had been done by the Foreign Office and State Department or be it the Pentagon, institutions of the state. And this was not a culminating, meeting between the figures of the state on both sides where they were inking deals, right? So here, I mean, the idea is two charismatic leaders meet and then they see and hopefully, create a link out of which then with subsequent follow-up, important things emerge. And I mean, of course, it's interesting that, here, from our part of the world and the world's making its observations about it, that, the head of the army and the prime minister are there together for this negotiation process. So, I mean, certainly there is, there's something to be said about that. But I think another $1 million question, Faisal, that you've been raising in the earlier discussion around the role of Afghanistan, and I do think that by now, given our long history with the region and forget the Soviet era, I mean, even if we're thinking post 9/11, by now Pakistan should have had 8 or 10 products, if you will, policy products, that it could just lay down on the table to provide, to transcend this kind of very myopic AFPAC hyphenation, this very conventional notion of security.
Anyway, just lost contact.
CAPI as an economic energy corridor that has the potential of bringing together key regional players, and rather than putting them in that usual adversarial situation, was a win-win. If it had done some homework on the ground and said, for instance, with Char Bahar and Gwadar, here are some possibilities for linkages. Here are some possibilities, because what are the points of friction with Afghanistan? The Durand line has always been a source of contention between Afghanistan and Pakistan, right? So, I mean, yes, we've used sort of, the Pakhtun connection and suggested that there should be talks with the Taliban. But what are, what are those products that can enable those end goals? And by now, we should have had much clearer ideas of what they should be,
But sir, don't you think a
very
very strong
tweaking
team,
the details
from the Foreign Office
but
under the supervision of the...
one hasn't seen sort of evidence and discussions around those. I mean, within our parliament, within our think tanks. So I think that also, rather than sort of hoping for the best.
All right, sir. All right. I'll just get back to you, Mohammed Ali Sahab. Now another important point, sir. A set of good policies, future outlook, what your Foreign Office tells you, what sort of interest you have in that region, or their interests in your region, sir. These all matter. But currently, sir, since the Chief of Army Staff as well as the DJI side, they are also there. So I'm sure intelligence sharing is going to be something very important. That could be one of the agendas. You talk about the role of Pakistan Army and the kind of achievements they have made during the last, I would say, a decade or so. When we talk about war on terror, I think they should also appreciate those. Plus on top, sir, the kind of image which we have as a terrorist country or a terror financing country for that matter, sir, it's the other way around. We are the victims. We have sacrificed. We have suffered throughout. Now, don't you think, sir, Mr. Donald Trump should also understand this, and some sane person should tell him and explain him that this is the reality. Fox News isn't telling you everything. Correct.
Well, there is a serious image and perception issue here. Not only with America, but in the world, there has been this perception that we have been following a very conventional policy. I mean, look at the 1990s. The Mujahideen, we thought that once the Mujahideen are there in 1991, Najibullah government was removed, and later he was killed also in 1996. So we expected that the Mujahideen whom we were supporting, they will establish a good government, a stable government in Afghanistan. That didn't happen. They started fighting amongst each other. Then Taliban took power in 1996, and for 5 years, only Pakistan, Saudi Arabia and UAE were the 3 countries that recognized Taliban as legitimate government. The rest of the world, there are around 195 countries in the world, the rest of the world did not recognize them. So the perception comes from somewhere. It does not come from the air. So the perception is that we have great influence over Taliban. That's why Pakistan was involved. And now they want an unconventional approach. And the unconventional approach will be that if Pakistan has influence over Taliban, which to some extent it has, that's why Pakistan is playing its role. So they want an assurance. The unconventional approach would be that Taliban will not be repeating the mistakes that they did during their 5-year rule, because during those 5-year rules, the world looked at them as a regressive medieval kind of kingdom that they established. So no matter whatever we say about Taliban, the world was looking at them, and the world created that perception.
UAE, Saudi Arabia, all these countries are looking towards modernization, and I
Yes.
would say not only modernization, westernization.
Exactly,
So obviously-
exactly. So now if Taliban come to power, this is a concern, not only for America, I mean, this is a concern for me also. I personally think that, if they try to re-establish the same medieval system that they had during those 5 years, which the world didn't like, and it was not in accordance with the 21st century's reality. So
Human
they
rights
want,
and so and so for women
Yes.
rights for that matter.
So
I mean,
they
there were
want, and
million
then
issues.
of course, terrorism. So we have suffered a lot, and Taliban have been accepting responsibilities also after those various terrorist attacks in Pakistan. So these perceptions are established over the years. These perception and images don't get established in a year or two, and it will take time to re-establish new perception and new image. And both Pakistan and Taliban need to work together and see if the new dispensation comes, and in which Taliban, if they have a role, that role should be positive and showing to the world that they will not repeat the mistake that they did previously.
Now, sir, Hafiz Saeed Saab, I mean, there was no case proven against him. Yet now it is generally believed, I'm not only going to quote you the social media, but a lot of other analysts also believe that Hafiz Saeed was arrested because the government says it was a part of the National Action Plan. Some say it could be regarding the FATF. Few believe that this was on the behest of the Americans. Sir?
Well, it
I
could
mean, I would like you to comment on the previous and also throw light on this
right.
point.
First, a few words what Nadir Sahib was saying. I think perceptions versus misperceptions is both a component of the wars of narratives. When real battles are fought and the wars are fought, it is quite a ritual now that since even First and Second World War, perception and misperception through propaganda are created. While Pakistan won the real war on the ground, Pakistan could not win the war of narratives. Now today it is the same Pakistan, it is the same Taliban who are being now cajoled, who are being talked to, who are being given importance, who are being listened. Had we been so bad, the world would not have recognized us now. Actually, they tried all their horses, but in vain. And that is why ultimately Pakistan finds itself now standing on the victory stand as far as Pakistan's stance is concerned. So there was nothing wrong with on ground, there was nothing wrong with the image of Pakistan, but it was the hostile agencies, countries created.
So that is also a part
perception.
of the war now.
Right. So
To deceive.
Right. So, war of narrative, we did not win, but now the circumstances so happen that all 3 big powers, you remember in your many programs I said, without US, China and Russia agreeing to give spaces to each other, Pakistan alone cannot do anything about Afghanistan conundrum. And that is now proven that China, America and Russia have given spaces and finally given the lead role to Pakistan. And that is where India is feeling left out and frustrated, and they should feel frustrated. As for the argument of their investment in Afghanistan, it was not for the love of the Afghans, it was for the hate of Pakistan. It was to launch covert war. So let the truth be called right now. Coming to Hafiz Saeed question. I agree with you. These three perceptions are there that this is, in November, Pakistan is on the tenterhooks for being blacklisted if they did not comply with the demands of the FATF. So they had to do something about Hafiz Saeed, because in that FATF demands, he is also one of the cases. But it also may have something to do with the track 2, track 3 diplomacy happening behind the scene, where Germany, UK, America, all countries are playing role in order to make sure that India-Pakistan tension, they get reduced, and they can ultimately sit on the formal dialogue table to discuss their bilateral issues, including Kashmir
All right.
and
All
the
right, sir.
terrorism.
So if you allow me, sir, we'll just take a break here. After the break, we'll return and we'll continue.
Silly
Multiple
morning
times.
tweets. So this man is working with you, work with him, do not play any game, be serious on Afghanistan, and through the prism of Afghanistan, take whatever the advantage you can. If he loses election, this man Biden, if he comes to power, he will not be very helpful, or he will not be an asset to Pakistan.
Well, Joe Biden was also a very seasoned, I would say, politician.
Yeah, for
sir.
United States, yes.
So everyone is for their own country. That's the best
No.
part. It should be like that.
I'm saying that this man has a little different approach. Use him.
He is also looking inward, sir.
Yeah.
Donald Trump.
And that's to your advantage.
He says America first. So in the cases with Imran Khan, he says Pakistan first. See, so one has to look after their own interests. That's more important. Now, sir, last couple of minutes are left. So if you put this visit on a scale of 1 to 10, sir, and as far as the expectations are concerned, obviously a lot of expectations, sir. Oh, well, Imran Khan is going to meet Donald Trump for the first time, and both are pretty recognized politicians, I would say, sir. Obviously, Donald Trump because of America, and Imran Khan because of its own personality and its own presence. Now, the DG ISI is visiting USA along with the Chief of Army Staff also, sir. Foreign Minister is going to be there too. So the four major decision makers, I would say. You see, sir, that if everything goes smoothly, everything goes fine, obviously they have done their homework. They must be at the optimum level regarding their own approach as well. Do you think 6, 7 is going to be the success mark, sir?
Well, if you want to be conservative, you could give it 5. If you want to be more optimistic, you could give it 7 to 8. But the crucial factor, in my judgment, is going to be how the Americans approach their relationship with Pakistan, and what is going to be the content of the conversation between President Trump and Prime Minister Imran Khan. And in that context, what strengthens Imran Khan's hand is the presence of the DG ISI and the Army Chief, because traditionally the Americans were able to exploit this civil-military, so-called civil-military divide in their relationship and play one against the other. But now by taking these Army Chief and DG ISI with him, Imran Khan has ensured that Pakistan is able to present a unified case about Afghanistan and whatever agenda item that will be that are going to be the subject of conversation. So which means that the Americans will not be able to play one against the other. That's one. The other, I think, the most important thing is going to be the element of unpredictability, because if there is a risk that if Pakistan promises too much to deliver on Afghanistan,
And we couldn't.
and if we cannot, then the blame is going to return to Pakistan. So I think we have to build in a
Calculated moves, basically.
Calculated moves, and we should not be promising anything more than what is within
What we
our
can do.
reach.
Sir, quick comment and then over to you, sir. Same point, sir.
Well, I think I tend to agree. I mean, it is we have to be optimistic, but at the same time, we should be cautiously optimistic about the situation, because United States is in dire straits in Afghanistan, and they would be expecting some more facilitation from Pakistan.
All right.
And Pakistan has done it, Pakistan will do it. But at the same time, Pakistan has to warn them about the spoilers. Inside
The
Afghanistan,
spoilers, yeah, obviously, yeah.
inside Afghanistan and outside Afghanistan.
All right.
So if United States can take care of those spoilers, then I think we can say Afghanistan will return to peace.
Closing remarks from you, Firzad sir.
I do want to make a reference to earlier discussion, brief discussion about a reference to Iran. I think we should not raise the issue of Iran at all. This is none of our business. United States is doing it, and they don't think that Pakistan has a stature that it can come and intervene on that major
Today,
issue.
they've
No,
shot down
we
a
should
drone
not.
of Iran.
Number two, our relationship with Iran is not very ideal. So just stay at a distance, stay out of it, let them deal with it. And Iran is quite capable of doing whatever the way it does things. Let them do it. As far as Afghanistan is concerned, let me just say one last word. The United States and Afghan Taliban are directly dealing with each other. This is one major success in which we have been of assistance. This is the way we should look at it.
All right.
And in this process, if we can add as much as we can, that is the most important
All
thing.
right. All right,
And
sir.
see if you can help them in the post-withdrawal
All right.
process.
All right, thank you very much, Firzad sir. Ryan sir, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much, Dr. Sahab. And that's all we have for this particular hour, but we'll continue our transmission from 3 to 4 as well. Stay with us.